International trade played a major role in the development of the American Civil War by firstly, trade disputes within textile industries led to the abolishment movement. Um, Secondly, the British had a huge reliance on the South's cotton. And finally, the mistreatment of slaves in the South's cotton fields led to the galvanize of the abolishment movement. Okay. First off, we need to understand the triangular trade, or better known as the slave trade. The triangular trade was an agreement of sorts between Africa, American, the Caribbean, and Europe. It would start with Africa trading, or African tribes or pirates invading small tribes and capturing their men, women, and children. They would sell these African American men or women and sell them to slave traders who brought them to North America. Once they were sold in North America, they would be put to hard and extensive labor, usually picking cotton or tobacco in the South, or sugarcane in the Caribbeans. That tobacco or sugar would be brought by ship to Europe, and the whole trade would be complete when Europeans sent manufactured goods down to Africa. These manufactured goods could be weapons that the larger tribes could use to help them invade the smaller tribes, to help them gain more power. And there are wars in between these tribes because they obviously never had fully agreements, so the larger tribes would invade smaller tribes, kill all the warriors, and then sell all of the remaining men and women into the slave business, and then it would be a whole circle or triangle and would work for everyone. Trade disputes happen when the amount of cotton to wool grew overnight. Europe had almost a wool monopoly on the world and with barely any slaves, so they all had it with paid workers or indentured slaves, which aren't necessarily slaves, but they serve the same purpose. Now that the slaves have been more popularized and are now in in the United States, the South parts, now cotton is growing and is now the favorite over wool because wool was much more thicker, much hotter, and cotton was a more loose fabric and easier to wear and put on. Many abolitionists were connected to the wool trade and were now losing money. They thought if they got rid of the main competitor, they would make more money, and so they wanted slavery gone. And this worked out for kind of the bootleggers, I guess, is what they're called now, that a company or source of people that want something gone for a moral reason are now put together with a group of men and women who want something gone for a financial reason. The men invested in the wool trade wanted slavery gone so they could make more money in the cotton or in the wool, and the people who really did not like the slaves and how they were treated wanted them gone so they could, for more reason, I guess you could say. Now Britain had a huge reliance on the South's cotton. Brian Tumor said the South was supplying Britain with the South was supplying Britain with 48% of its needs. By 1830, that percentage would rise to 70%. And just like that, the Southerners jumped 120% of profits overnight. Cotton became king cotton and the main source of many people in the South. So that was really like their only thing they were working towards. That was the only like job, I guess you could say, because the South has a really good agriculture with it being warm and very humid, so that would help plants grow like tobacco and cotton. Okay. This relates to the inhumane conditions the slaves were being put through. Now the South, now that the South had a reason to have slaves, they were making sure they used all the slave up. Slaves were now seen as objects being sold all across the country and split apart from their families. So a slave that was in Virginia could quickly be sold down to the Mississippi River, and now in the Mississippi growing cotton at a different plantation, like half across the country, and separated from their child and wife. Slaves were put through terrible punishments for even the smallest mistakes. They would be whipped and beaten to death even if they would not pick enough cotton. This led to rebellions in the plantations and a whole lot of violence. This led to the galvanized public opinion to sway against slavery, because if these slaves are going out on the town at night and killing all of these white slave owners, of course you would want that to stop, because you don't want that to happen to you. So they thought, get rid of slaves, then they would live and not be slaughtered. So this is how in total, this is how trade disputes, a rely on cotton, and the inhumane treatment of slaves led to the Civil War, American Civil War.